Howdy guys, Dr. Dex here. Today we are talking about 5 different types of saws and how they are used and what they're used for. So if you get something out of this video, I know there's a lot of experts out there that watch our stuff. Maybe this video is not for you, but I know there's a lot of chiropractors and dentists and attorneys that also watch our page. So for those people that maybe don't know so much about power tools, this is a video for you. So if you like what you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we're putting out fresh content. And we just got finished bending up some deck boards. And if you want to know about deck board bending or how to become a heat bender, then go check out Dr. Deck's masterclass. All right, so first up. Now, most saws that we use nowadays, the technology is getting so good that a lot of them are cordless. So I have some cordless saws here, and some of them are corded. It just depends on which one we're using. So for today, since we're in my lab, some of these are corded, some are cordless. I'll explain the differences and how they work and so on and so forth. So the first one I have is a cordless jigsaw. And it is made by DeWalt. And what I use jigsaws for mostly is when I'm cutting a curve or a circular, or I'm trying to notch something out of a deck board. That's what this saw is used for mostly. It has a few different settings for the aggressiveness of the blade, so you can put it flat so that it's just oscillating up and down like this. Or you can have it have up to a 3, a number, if there's 1, 2, and 3, to give you a more aggressive cut like this. And what that does is it kind of moves back and forth. It allows you to cut through material faster. There's an option on this side of the saw that has a dust port, so you can actually have a little bit of air blowing the material out of your way if you want. You can also turn that off if it bugs you or if it's not working for you. And then the saw also allows you to unlock and move the base plate onto different angles. There we go. Up to a 45-degree angle, okay? We use a jigsaw quite often, especially when we're notching boards around corners, around posts, or if we need to just cut a curve. And you can go really fast and obnoxious with this thing, or you can do really fine, intricate cuts. There's multiple different types of blades. This one particular one has a quick blade release. So you just pull up on this, the blade comes right out. You pick up on it again, and you can switch blades super quick that way. So it's a great little tool. I use this religiously all the time on the job site. Really enjoy it. This item here is called a reciprocating saw. It is also cordless. We don't have a corded version of one of these on our job site. The cordless ones we use pretty much all the time. We have a Metabo HPT cordless reciprocating saw that I like a little bit better than this one. But basically what this saw does is one thing. Does that really good. Okay, there's not a lot of features to this saw. You can extend this base plate out a little bit if you want. Sometimes that comes in handy if you are cutting on the same blade and you want to use a different spot on the blade on the teeth. So like if you wear out the teeth on a specific part of the blade, you can move this out a little bit and then get longer life out of your blades. So that's one thing you can do. Again, this one has a quick release. You just pull on this and the blade pops out like so. Basically, this thing is made for cutting through stuff. When you just got to make quick, rough, dirty cuts on stuff. Sometimes you can get precise with these, but it's probably more precision in a jigsaw than there is in a SAWZALL. But sometimes you can't get to things with a jigsaw that you can with this because you're not limited to a base plate, not necessarily to this. You may just be using the blade, or for the most aggressive cutting, you always use your plate against the material and then you push in and then it really digs in. But just for cutting things flush, sometimes we use a metal blade on here and we can cut through metal with it. We use a lot of pruning blades. They're made for pruning trees, but we use them to cut through wood because they're quick. So if we're cutting through nail-embedded wood, we use a different blade. A lot of Diablo, check out Diablo. Those guys make some really great blades for different circumstances that you need for your reciprocating saws, all your jigsaws, and all your skill saws and things like that. So the generic name of this is a reciprocating saw. A lot of people call this a SAWZALL because that was, back in the day, Milwaukee came out with a brand and they called it a SAWZALL, which saws SAWZALL, but I think they spell it SAWZALL. Calvin, check that out and let me know, or let our audience know if we're correct on that or not. And so sometimes I, hey, give me a SAWZALL, or give me a reciprocating. I usually don't say reciprocating saw, I actually say SAWZALL, even though that's a different brand. Everybody knows what SAWZALL means. It means this. Next item. This is called a worm drive saw. This is a 7 1/4 inch worm drive saw. This is a framer special, like framers use these all the time. They basically are meant to cut 2x material. They can cut 4x4s and 6xs, but you have to flip the board. But for 2x, this is made for ripping and cross-cutting and cutting different angles. So basically, a skill saw, it's essential on every job. Now, we have cordless ones on the job site that we use. This one's corded. Obviously, you plug it into an extension cord to the wall to use it. So I don't use the corded one so much. This one's a little bit heavier. It's pretty heavy duty. This would be a good construction site saw, even though it has a magnesium base. Still has a little bit of weight to it, a little bit of heft, but it also has a lot of girth. This is like a rafter hook, is what they call it. We use it on our joists all the time, but it's also designed so you can hang it on rafters when you're framing on a house and that kind of thing. So there's not a lot to this saw either. There's a depth setting. You can pull this up and you can cut very minimal. And there's a gauge right here that you can line up to. There's a point on the back of the saw, a marker indicator, and you can pull this up and line up that measurement to that indicator, and you'll know, okay, if I want to cut 1 inch deep, I can go to here, and then roughly you're at 1 inch. Me personally, I always measure anyways with a tape measure, but everybody's different. Framers, it's all about speed, man. They just want to get it done. So, oh, inch, boom, done, cut, done, okay? So, this takes a 7 1/4 inch blade, and like I said, it's magnesium. There's an onboard tool, which is kind of nice to change your blades right here. So you can also turn this saw one way to the left and make your cuts up to a 45. Well, it goes 45, and then actually get up to a 50-degree angle. You have to move this pin out of the way right here, and then you can cut up to a 50 degree. So it has a positive stop lock, which is adjustable in case it ever gets out of calibration at 45 degrees. And if you need to cut over 45 degrees, now this is kind of a nice feature. You don't see that on every saw. You can flip this out of the way and actually get an extra 5 degrees. One other thing, this is an oil-based saw, so you have to add oil to it every once in a while for maintenance. And there's also a positive lock for your blade changes. So when you spin this around, oh, it looks like I'm in. And it positive locks so that you can get your nut off, get it fixed. All right, so there's your skill saw. Excuse me, that's the trade name. This is a worm drive saw. So I call it a skill saw because, again, it's a trade name, and I've had so many skill saws in the past. It's by a company named Skill that pretty much invented the worm drive saw. So that's that. This saw we use all the time. We use it every day. Every day we're on a job site. I don't think there's been a day gone by that I haven't used a chop saw. Chop saws are really important. Now, this is a Metabo HPT 10 inch. They make 7 1/4 inch chop saws, 10 inch chop saws, and 12 inch chop saws. This one happens to be a cordless version, so corded or cordless, you can use this saw, which is a nice feature. Basically, this is a compound sliding miter saw. So it has a lot of features that a standard chop saw would not. We did a review on this saw a couple months ago. So if you go back through our YouTube page, you'd be able to find a review on this particular saw. If you want all the specifics, I'm not going to get into it today. Really, the purpose of this video is just to show people the different types of saws that we use and what they're all about. So basically, this thing is designed to do one thing, and that's cut boards. This will cut through a 4x4 or any 4x6. 4x8 you could probably get through with it, but that's about the limitations of the capacity. I think you can get through a 2x12 this way. And that's what's cool about this. The saw can slide all the way out, and then you can make it cut all the way back. So if you don't want to have it sliding, you can lock it out and use it as a standard chop saw as well. So that's kind of a nice feature. Has plenty of power. Now, what's cool about this, it has onboard controls to the front. So let's say I need to make a compound miter cut or something like that. I can lift this right here, this lock. I can turn it to the angle I need, which is an angle indicator right over here that tells me how far to go. Now there's a positive stop on here, so this saw is only turning so far. But let's just say I need to go 22.5. So there's 22.5. Then I can lock this down. Now the angle of the saw is locked at 22.5. And then let's say I need to go 30 degrees this way. Now I can make my compound miter cut. Again, if you want the full review on this saw, go through our YouTube channel and find the page where we did a review on this Metabo saw. My last saw that I want to talk to you about is called a table saw. That's just the generic name for it. This one's made by DeWalt. It is a corded version. This is not a cordless version. We do have a cordless Metabo HPT table saw, 10-inch, at our job site. And it also is corded. So we have the option of either running it on power or on cordless, just depends on what we're doing with it. Table saws are designed mostly for ripping. That's what I use them for, is just ripping materials down into different widths. Some people use them a lot for cross-cutting. I don't use mine too much for cross-cutting, but you can do that. But basically, all this thing does is it has a handle to elevate your blade. There's a switch over here to dial in the width of whatever you're ripping down. Like sometimes I rip deck boards in half to 2 3/4. So I've set my gauge up. When it says 2 3/4, I set my gauge up so that it's to the inside of my blade. So it's 2 3/4 from the saw fence to this side of the blade. That's just the way I do it. But let's just say I was at 2 3/4. I lock it down. Now the fence can't move. It has an onboard push stick right here, so for safety, that's kind of nice. So you always have it. I've actually cut my thumb pretty bad using it as a push stick before. Don't recommend doing that anymore. Well, never recommended doing it. I was just being stupid. Blade changes are easy because the throat plate comes off real quick. And then I don't think there's onboard tools for this particular saw for some reason, which I didn't understand. When you sell me a table saw, give me the wrenches and make them accessible. I have an old DeWalt saw that actually has them screwed right to the side of the table saw, and our Metabo one has those onboard tools as well, because it's a total pain walking around trying to find wrenches for your saw. This is a 10-inch blade. So any 10-inch blade is great. We don't use a lot of high tooth blades on this saw. It's mostly 40 teeth or less because we're ripping a lot of wet, pressure-treated, incised lumber, and it cakes pretty good onto the blade. So our blades don't last nearly as long when we're ripping pressure-treated and then plywood and then PVC and all these other things that we rip on our table saw. This is a full-size saw, so oh, there we go. So it becomes a flat spot for wider sheet goods so they don't dip. And you can take this thing all the way out, and I think it'll rip up to, up to 24 inches. Maybe a little over 24. So that's kind of nice if you're trying to rip sheets of plywood in half or something like that. I don't usually use the width that much on my saw, but sometimes. All right, and that is my top 5. Isn't that a neat sound? All right, so those are 5 different saws that you can consider for purchase for yourself. I got one more for you, a little bonus. If you're old school and you're just not into all this power or cordless tools, you can always use a good old reliable handsaw. Now there's multiple different types of hand saws. I was looking for the old school wood kind, you know, that people play music on and bow, and you can just, but what I do have, this is called a hacksaw. It's made for cutting metal. It has thinner tooth blades, and so if you ever needed to sit there and grind, you can just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I don't use these too often, but I do have one in my toolkit because you just never know when you might need one. So if you like what you saw today, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we're putting out fresh content. And don't forget to go check out Dr. Deck's Masterclass. Sign up and become a heat bender just like I am. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.